Sorry, this first example is probably going to resonate more with women than it is men, and I'm trying to move away from that, but I wasn't prepared yet to do that today. Sorry, dudes. If you've ever been shopping for a bra or worked in a Victoria's Secret at some point, one of the things you were taught was to convince people that they were wearing the wrong bra size. That's why I will not let anyone come near me for a bra fitting, no matter what. And here's the thing. They will be like, oh, what size do you wear? 36B? Well, I'm going to measure you. You have to say it first. And then I measure you, and I start talking. And I talk you in a different direction. I'm like, oh, well, a 36B is really, are you sure you're not a 34C? You look a little smaller right here. Let's try this a little differently. Oh my goodness. Because really, once you put an underwire in the bra, the difference between a 34B and a 36C up until about 2003, when the sizing standards changed, things when you've worked retail for a really long time, they really weren't that different. No, they weren't. Ask anyone with bigger boobs. It was like, I have a really hard time finding fit. Once you added the molded cups, once you added the underwires, you're really making bras, you're selling specificity, but you're creating generalization, which is easier on the manufacturer. So I tell you that to tell you this: the adjustments that we can make can, and often do, net out to similar results. And never has that been more apparent than in something that we think of as interval training. Now, again, to refresh content from the previous video, interval training is commonly thought of like when we think about 1 kilometer repeats with active recovery in between. 1 kilometer repeats at 5K pace with active recovery in between. We think of the 1 kilometer repeat as the repeat, right? That's the repetition. That's the repetition, that's the repeat, that's not the interval. The interval is the recovery interval, the rest interval that comes after. And this, I promise you, is the most important part of the workout. When I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and I'm especially in my elites, less so in my clients, it's more of a measure or a taking stock. This is where this active recovery is where I look for the fitness gains. It's not in benchmark workouts, it's not in critical power thresholds. It all has to do with what their heart rate does. And how they're able to manage. It's not just a physiological thing, it's very psychological as well. Are they able to recognize recovery? Just because, and if you remember my Strava last week, just because you slow down doesn't mean you're recovering under certain conditions, and you need to know when that is not coming together in your body. So is a client able to recognize that? Or if they see their heart rate isn't coming down, does that stress them out, cause more cortisol to spike, and stress them out even further? That's pretty important. So when we think about the switches that we need, the levers that we can pull, or the switches that, since everyone wants to start with an on-off switch and the on-off button, I really prefer to think of these as levers that I can pull, but Wayfinder, I just couldn't figure out how to draw a lever that didn't look like a penis, and I didn't no desire to be doing this all morning. There's only so far my good humor will stretch. So make that look like not something valid, please, when we try to put this on paper. But to that end, the reason that the recovery interval matters so much is, again, because that's the measuring that I'm doing. I want to look and see that the last time you did this workout, what did your heart rate do during the recovery intervals? How much recovery were you able to get? If you're getting less recovery today, that doesn't necessarily mean you're losing fitness, but it could mean something's different. It could mean it's summer. It can mean you did it outside versus a treadmill. It can mean you didn't sleep last night. It can mean you're hungry. It can mean all kinds of things. It could mean absolutely nothing. It could just be an off day. Demanding that we assign meaning to a workout that isn't what we wanted, or it's my job as a coach to kind of look and do a little digging and see what the difference could be. And maybe I'm if they're not recovering during the interval and still able to hit the paces, it's a pretty good sign that I'm overtraining them. If I'm training them one-on-one. And that's a sign for me to back them off. It's not about what the client needs to do differently. It's about the adjustments that I need to make to help them get the results that they want. It's not a judgment of the client. You guys go in this, they're treating data like a magic 8-ball, looking for what it says about you and your potential. And I promise you've got more than you think you do. But when you're working with a coach one-on-one that cares about the data and likes getting into the numbers the way that I do, this is all I'm looking for, is what do I need to do to bring the best out of you, and what are you able to respond to versus not. Having shorter recovery intervals, sometimes it stresses people out and they just blow them. So I have to, even a really fit person, I might have to give a longer, super easier recovery interval to, depending on, I'm not here to unpack all of their childhood trauma, but all I know is this is working, this isn't, try something else, try something else, try something else. And where that something else comes from are from these switches that break down into these two portions of the workout. The key workouts, as people like to refer to them, but that's what makes them the key. It's the presence of active recovery. You're doing an easy effort workout, there's no active recovery in there or recovery interval for me to use to gauge a fitness level, what's changing and what's working. This is all of the information I need as a one-on-one coach to do my job really, really well. All of the programs that you guys are on were tested on my one-on-one clients over the course of 18 months, trying to find the right mix of intervals that would net out to the same effect that I wanted, regardless of fitness levels. So someone relatively new to maintain could come in and get similar benefits to someone who's been in maintain for 18 months. That person who's been in maintain for 18 months might still be there because they're not bored. They get a brand new plan every month. They don't have to think, and they can opt into races without having to plan very far in advance. There are a lot of really sweet things about being in maintain that have nothing to do with fitness level. But yes, as long as you're in there and you don't stop, you are going to improve. It's going to happen. And we will be rolling out specialized programs that cater to different levers that we can pull over time. That's not going to happen this year or next. So that is going to take some time. But because with the other portion, when I also talk about the levers separately, there's this whole separate set of levers. This is like the workout switches, the workout levers. Then there's the overall strength versus running versus strength and run. Those are more like jigsaw pieces, and that's a whole different broadcast wayfinder that we'll get to later. Right now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the recovery intervals. So there are different types of recovery, and you've probably seen them. This will be going up in Canva. You have active recovery, which means it has nothing to do with effort or pace. It means I want you doing whatever you have to do to get your heart rate down to recover during this interval as much as possible. And if that means while your ankles are bearing your body's weight and moving forward. And that could mean doing this really slowly. I'm fine with that. This is active recovery. Jogging is active recovery. Active recovery is literally anything. It could be walking, it could be shuffling, as long as you are upright, body weight on top of your ankles, moving forward. Pace does not matter. A jog is not better than a walk. Paying attention to what I told you to do, which is recover. That matters more than anything. Get rid of this notion of pace. When I say active recovery, that's exactly what I mean. I need you to recover no matter what, because the adaptations your body is making happens every time your heart rate goes up for the harder interval portion of the workout again. There's another type of recovery that is, I call it the float. It's generally known as the float, and if you've seen the new trailers for it, we all float down here. Yeah, it's a little scary. It's a little harder. It's faster than easy effort. And we had to put it on the scale. It would be close to if you're running, it would be like one step behind what you're doing. Here's how to look at it. If you're training for a marathon, and I tell you that you need to float in between, then your float pace is somewhere between your marathon pace and your easy effort pace, exactly where I don't care. If we're training for a 5K and I say float, then your next notch down is 8K pace, or for most of my non-elite runners, it's 10K pace, right? So if you've been doing half marathon, don't worry about it. It's not that you've been doing everything wrong. I didn't explain this very well. Active recovery is one step below. Not active recovery, floating. Floating is not recovery, but I don't care anything about your heart rate getting down. I care about you backing off and continuing to go and getting used to that sensation of being behind the workout ball, right? So if we're training for a 5K, and I have some concerns about your ability to find 5K effort, I'm going to have you find it over and over and over. And once I'm pretty sure that you're close to it, I'm going to be like, all right, so now we're going to float. Active recovery is going to become a float. So you're going to find it over and over and over and back off and back off and back off and back off and back off. And I don't care. Once I'm convinced you can hit the pace, you can hit that effort, I want you to show me that you can back off and stay backed off for the duration of the recovery interval, because that is what tells me that you can feel recovery and you can feel the pace. And that is what you need to be able to synthesize and feel the difference between if you're going to do really well performance-wise on race day. Not everyone needs to worry and focus this much about it. You really don't. It takes a long time to get here, and enjoy it before you get here. But everything I do is a glorified step-by-step process of teaching you how to run by feel while making you fitter in a body that's changing over time, and it's changing so rapidly. What is easy one month might be, your jog pace, your marathon pace one month might become your easy effort pace over time. That's exactly what happened to Coach Sarah in between Twin Cities and now. All she saw was one bad race day, not the fact that her easy effort pace today is her race pace 2 years ago. And it happened without trying. It happened without hard intervals. It happened without really focusing on finding backing off, and knowing your body. None of this stuff. She did it by being consistent, staying, showing up, and not stressing out in between by making good choices. And that is exactly the effort. And yeah, she was one of my test subjects. I've been planning this for a very long time. This is one of the reasons why things I've been planning some sort of a pipeline like this. I had no idea it was going to happen in this way. But I was thinking, when we need to do things differently, what can I do to accidentally keep people engaged? It's where the monthlies came from. It's where everything came from. And that entire backdrop, I started with Coach Sarah saying, hey, what can I do to keep this person moving and motivated? What does she need? She is a whole lot like a whole lot of people I see. Take away the Harvard, take away the doctor, take away who she is, how she views herself, and what she demands of herself is incredibly common. And that is why she feels like the girl next door, even though she's a unicorn. So to that end, she didn't have to do any of this complicated stuff. All she had to do was keep moving. These are the things that I'm going to be doing with people on this steady AF plane. You're going to see a whole lot of floating. Maybe not this time, but in the next iteration you will. And that is why. Yay! That's everything I can think of to tell you about the recovery interval. But if I tell you anything else, your main takeaway needs to be the rep doesn't really matter. Running a faster rep is not going to, and necessarily, or a more specific rep is not going to net a better finish time per se. What you do and what you glean from your recovery intervals will, and that is why it's called interval training. Enjoy!